You plan on buying a house in another state. You better understand the 100-mile rule because your loan could get turned down. For reference, I'm a loan officer. I help people get mortgages to buy houses, sometimes refinance. I get this woman calling me. She explains to me that she lives in New York and she wants to buy a house in Pennsylvania, but not just Pennsylvania, the west side of Pennsylvania. I said, okay. I said, where do you live now? She explains she lives in New York. She explains that her job's in New York. I said, well, if you're going to buy a primary residence several hundred miles away from your job, how are you going to go back and forth? She goes, well, I can't go back and forth every day. I said, okay, so what's your plan? She goes, well, my plan is to do what I currently do. I work 3 or 4 days, and then I have 3 or 4 days off, depending on what the shift is. I said, okay, that makes sense. But when you're in New York, where are you going to live? She goes, well, my sister lives in New York, and I have a room in her house, and I can stay there. And then I'll go back to Pennsylvania, and I'll be in my house. I said, okay, what do you do currently? She goes, what do you mean, what do I do currently? I was like, if we call your HR department, will they tell us that you currently work 3 or 4 day shifts in a row? She goes, yeah, they would tell us that. And I said, okay, would your sister write a letter that says you can live in a house rent free? She goes, yeah, my sister would write a letter. I said, okay, we're going to do an application. We're going to get that letter from your sister. We're going to reach out to the HR department. They need to tell us that you work 3 days straight, 4 days straight, and then you have 3 or 4 days off. We're going to put that all together in this loan application, and we're going to put this into underwriting. I'm telling you right now that we will probably get this loan approved, but it better all make sense because this is not a slam dunk. You cannot have a primary residence that's more than 100 miles away from your primary job unless there's pretty good exceptions. This might qualify, but it's not a guaranteed approval.